Hi, this is Bob McCauley with Superwire TV. We have another episode of Around Leisure World, and we have the lovely lady Marcia Baltimore.
How do you do?
Who is a hostess or a host on the CRN internet radio station.
Right.
That has about 11 million
worldwide viewers. No, listeners. It's radio.
And so we were thinking about getting Marcia out to Leisure World.
Thank you.
And on the Superwire TV channel.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, Marcia, your credentials and how you...
I was on a CRN for 2 years now, and the boss found me because I wrote 2 novels which were on my website on the internet, www.marciabaltimore.com, and they were humor. And when he let go of one of his former psychologists, who shall remain unnamed, but she was so rude to a certain segment of our humanity in America that the boss fired her.
Instantly on the spot?
Yes.
Wow.
And the next morning he came to my house with the secretary and asked me if I'd go on his channel. I said, "Where'd you find me?" He said, "I saw your books on the internet and you're goofy," he said, "but you will never do what that woman did, and I want you on my channel." So I went, and I was very good. I liked learning what he had to teach me and what his staff had to teach me. The technical guys were fantastic, are fantastic. And I had some programs developed, which I brought with you. But first I want to show you why I'm here with my glitz. The name of the show is Silver Moments for the silver people over 55. That represents 49% of the American public. 49% of people in this country are over 55. Did you know that?
No.
That's a market you can't even buy anywhere.
But I'm glad to know that.
Yeah,
That's
well,
great
if you're
news.
selling something to people who can use those things, like I mentioned before, we'll talk about that later, you have a market of 49 plus people. That's the percent of the United States that are 55 plus years. So I put the channel to myself, and in the 2 years that I worked at CRN, I produced about 40 shows. And here's the first year work. And I started with the Harvard study. The Harvard study shows how older people relate to life if they are following certain, let's say, emotional rules in the world. And here's what they are. The first thing is generativity. Generativity means you value the generation that comes after you and the generation that comes after them, the grandchildren.
Okay.
So we're going down there because that gives you a real focal point for your life. You're not going to be a schlump, as I would say, to your grandchildren. In fact, that's why I moved to Leisure World.
So you have some ownership and some liability.
Exactly. Very well spoken, yes. And my son said, if you don't move near me, my kids are not going to know your name. That's what he said. So I moved. And they live in Los Alamitos, and I live in Leisure World, which is a mile away. And then when they don't need a babysitter now, but they did at one time, and I see them. So I go over there and we talk about whatever the subjects are of the day. And I like to be around, available to my son and my daughter-in-law and my 2 grandchildren. So aging well was the Harvard study about that. And they found that generativity, the concept of thinking for the next generation or 2. Look at this new baby born yesterday. They couldn't get this child a name for 48 hours, right? Because they're so important what the name is going to be. And George was his great-grandfather, right? So he's named after his great-grandfather. And I remember seeing George on the films. And he was terrific. So you see what generativity leads to, and Harvard studied it. And so I revealed
Okay.
it.
What next?
Then we had nutrition. Then we had exercise. All these are health activities. And I mentioned the census. And then we had money. And I was dispelling the myth on August 18th that women don't do money. Baloney. Women do plenty of money. And they have to work it. They have to keep it safe. They have to distribute it into subdivisionals so that they're not putting everything in a big risk basket. They're subdividing the baskets. So women go to school for that, they learn that, and they now run big companies because they know how. So those are the things that I work on with the families. And the other things I work on have to do with the calendar in America. Because we have a very, let's say, country-related, United States of America-related calendar. And you cannot move Abe Lincoln's birthday out of February 12th. That's when he was born.
Mm-hmm.
You stick to that. So you put that in your, I put that in my programming. On the 12th of February, or around there, before preferably, we're going to think about Lincoln.
Okay.
So that's the calendar. We have to handle that in a smart way. And if we forget it, we're going to forget our heritage. And I think that's one of the reasons we're having some problems in America now. The president was on an hour ago about that subject. He was just on, and he was saying, we have to know where we're going, and we're going to lose our value system if we don't know. Well, the calendar helps us get there.
Mm-hmm.
MLK is Martin Luther King Day. February 12th is Abraham Lincoln Day. 4th of July, I don't have to tell you. It's our birthday collectively. We have to know all of that. We have to have that go generatively to the children and the grandchildren, right?
Too bad there's not a Grandparents' Day.
We should get that. Good idea.
Maybe that could be one of your subjects.
Should we or shouldn't we have it, and when?
Yes.
I like it. We'll do that. That's
Okay.
a good idea. Okay, so that's the thing. Then I do things for the community, like senior driving. You know, we had accidents here at Leisure World because seniors weren't driving properly. We have signs all over the place because seniors don't know the rules. They have to read them. Forget it. You have to know them, not read them.
Mm-hmm.
So these things are part of the
And what do you
program.
mean? You got to know them.
You don't have to read a sign to say pedestrians have the right of way. You have to know that.
Okay.
Because sometimes there's not going to be a sign, right? So what are you going to have? Hit the pedestrian? Because there's no signs? I think I just fainted from what I said. That is so dumb that we can't resolve ourselves to that. We can't
Okay.
allow that. We have to just know what we're all about. So then I had some fun stuff that I liked, but I don't know if the people liked it, which I got from magazines called Inc. and Bloomberg and other magazines that talk about the science of the decades. I mean, there's no question about it. We're in the computer age. We have to know how to use it, like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And the more of us who are smart like you and can fix it, the happier the dummy ones like me are, because you help us. So I think that we're like in a revolving epoch now of people who know the computer very well and people who are trying to learn it, and people who don't want to learn it. They're just going to go by the wayside. There's no way. Do you see a way?
Well, I do see that as we get into the iPads, that more and more older people are getting more proficient
That's good.
than they did with the old desktop, laptop computers. And they're able to teach the younger people how to use it, as opposed to vice versa.
I'm going vice versa, so my grandson
Yes.
teaches me.
But I think that's going to change.
Oh, I didn't know iPad was that strong of an influence, but I'm hearing you.
More and more at Leisure World is getting to be a very good influence. Because a lot of times people just have a need for email and a few videos, YouTube. And an iPad's perfect for that. Don't get all confused about, the things about start menus and things like that.
Right. That's good to know.
So what else?
Well, we have that, and then we have the discoveries of the decade. there was never a decade, I think, since Michelangelo painted, where you had a group of inventions like Microsoft developed, Apple developed. You never had that before. And it's changing us. No question about it. Do you think so?
Facebook.
Facebook, yes.
Some people don't like it, but Facebook has certainly had its influence.
And what about Twitter?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a user of Twitter, but that's for people that like to talk a lot and with little messages. And it's getting more and more popular with things like things that happen, like the baby.
Yeah, the baby. Baby's it.
Everybody wants to comment on the baby. What should the name be? Whatever. They go to Twitter and they can.
And
talk
where did George come from?
Yes.
And where did Alexander come from? And where does Louis? And can we call him Louis instead of Louis? They're already giving him a nickname.
Right.
So those things are very important to people. Don't you
Okay.
think?
What else?
And what else is senior driving? I just mentioned that.
Okay.
And the stages of marriage. I had a program once called Sex After 60. And recently it was on the radio that a Supreme Court justice of our nation, a female, had a husband who went into dementia, and they put him in a home, and he found a woman in the home. He was still married to the Supreme Court justice, but he was in the home, and he had an affair with a woman in the home. And the Supreme Court justice said, he needs her. I can't leave the bench to go help him. And she okayed it, but she said, I want a permission from his family to see my husband or his wife.
Wow.
And that
Very generous.
that went through the newspapers, and it was public information. And the woman who did it was a Supreme Court justice of our nation. So that's what we're saying, and that's a different world from the Victorian age, because they have scientific evidence. Like I said, generativity is one requirement to live longer.
Okay.
And sex is another one, and food, of course,
Okay.
and water, and exercise.
Proper food.
Yes, nutrition is
Okay.
nutrition food. And exercise, the proper kind of exercise. So
Do you exercise?
Yes,
Yes.
I'm a swimmer. I have 22 gold medals from the state of California Olympics.
Oh, wow.
Local. I mean, not in national.
Congratulations.
Well, I keep fit. That's all.
Fantastic.
But that's why I like it. You know, it's easy, and my hair curls, so I don't have a problem. So anyway, I think when we know what kind of information we can get a hold of, it's so easy. You know, put the menu together, the vegetables. It's easy if the women are interested in doing it. So I think you detox your system. I had a dietitian on once, and she said you detox your system when you eat it, vegetables and fruits. So you have to learn how to like that. You can go a couple days without meat, fish, you can go. But you can't go a couple days without a little cracker or a piece of lettuce or something like that. You have to have that. So I have a nutritionist talk about that. I don't do that. I ask the questions,
Okay.
but I want a professional to say that and to tell us how to cook and to tell us what are the ingredients we need daily. I think it's better that the nutritionist does it. So that was on my program.
Okay.
And what else there is? I talked about Hanukkah and Christmas, but I didn't talk. I had a minister and a lady rabbi, female rabbi. On the radio she spoke, on the telephone, and we came to the conclusion that Christmas is a story of a victim. Christ was a victim.
Okay.
And Hanukkah is a story of a war.
Okay.
So they're not the same, but they're not pleasant.
Okay. Do you have any debates on your shows?
Well, if they argue with each other,
Okay.
I don't set it up, but sometimes they do that. But the question of whether or not Christmas is a victim story, And whether or not Hanukkah is a war story is open for discussion. And that's what the people were on that show decided. I mean, nobody's making it a law.
Do you take subject requests from your audience?
Yes, yes, they can call
They
up.
can
But,
call up and tell you what they want to hear on the next.
On the telephone, we can't do that here. So you'll have to do it by, next week we'll discuss such and such.
Yeah.
It's a different,
So you will take suggestions.
yes, that's what we were
Fantastic.
doing. Before, we were doing it live with the phone. Now, I don't know how you do it. You have to help me.
We'll get there.
Yeah. So detoxing your system is part of it. And,
Well, now, you've gone over some really credible ideas for these presentations. Tell us a little bit about Marcia Baltimore, your credentials,
yes,
how you got started, things like that.
well, I have the credentials from the state of California in psychology. I'm a licensed school psychologist and a licensed therapeutic psychologist.
Okay.
The school was where I put my emphasis because I was very good with kids. Because of one thing, I play the piano and I sing a little bit crazy with them and stuff like that. And so the kids were my interest. And I'm very generative, like we talked about. So that was one thing I did very young. I was an editor at 10 of a single news sheet in my elementary school. I'll never forget that. This principal said, you're going to write because you're a good writer, and once every 3 months we want a sheet about the school, about the holidays that are happening inside of that 3 months, etc. So I'm doing the same thing. I just put the paper down, didn't I? And that was the first time. Then I went to Syracuse University, and I got focused in on the religion of Syracuse was 3 definite religions, and they emphasized that just stiffly. They wanted everybody to be interrelated. Christian, Jew, Muslim, whatever you were, you talked to each other. And I was editor of that magazine in Syracuse. Now that's a step up from the elementary school, but it's the same thing, right? And then when I went to the University of SC, because the government liked all this other stuff I was doing, they were doing Sesame Street. They were getting it ready. And I helped them at SC. What did I do? I measured. I measured how the groups performed under different conditions, and I found out that if the kid talks back to the screen and says, say it with me, the teacher says, and the child says, B, and the teacher holds up a big B. Say it with me, says the teacher, B, and they say it. They can learn what they do the B with the B, or the SH with the sh, or whatever. But if they answer it, they learn it. And that was proven without a doubt by the experiment with these kids. And so I got a doctor's degree for that, because I proved it. And then I went to work as a psychologist in the clinics, because they need help. They need lots of help in the inner city and everywhere.
You have any interesting incidents in that?
Well, my favorite story is me and the crippled girl in the wheelchair.
Okay.
In comes this mama, and she's speaking Spanish only, and lucky I'm bilingual, because I was in Albuquerque. As a school teacher, you have to hear what the kids say. You know, ¿Qué pasa contigo? What are you doing? You know, whatever. And so I knew Spanish, so it was very good on the job in L.A. So with that extra added, tool of Spanish, the little girl and the mother is saying, I want you to help me buy a wheelchair. I said, wait a minute, ma'am, you don't have to buy a wheelchair. Come on in here, we'll get you a wheelchair. So I get on the telephone to the Shriners, and those guys are always bragging how they can get anybody a wheelchair. I said, hi guys, this is Marcia. Oh, you again, they gave. So what do you want this time? I said, I need a size 5 wheelchair for about 5 years. This little kid is 3, but it'll work. And the guy on the other side says, I'll get it for you in a month. I said, what? You want me to put that in the LA Times? And he said, all right. So the next day I got the wheelchair for the kid.
Fantastic.
It's just joking around. He wanted to joke around. He was going to get it anyhow. But he likes to joke, so.
Okay. And then what? Any other incidents that were remarkable?
Well, I had it wasn't a joke, it was serious with Mayor Villaraigosa,
Okay.
Antonio. What happened was, I was putting 2 and 2 together at a meeting downtown in the city hall. They have all these empty buildings that they can't get these kids out of. They're illegally living in them, there's no water flowing, there's no heat in them, and they're not going to school. So I heard those facts at this meeting. And they're not going to school. I'm saying, hey, we got to do something. That's illegal. That's the only illegal point they had in the whole morning was that.
Mm-hmm.
So I got home and I started to write a proposal, because one thing you learn when you get the doctorate degree from USC is how to write a proposal. So I started to write it, and I called up the mayor and I said, I was at your meeting, blah, blah, and I think you ought to think about this. And I presented him with a written proposal with all kinds of boxes in it and everything, to have the city of Los Angeles clean up those buildings, evict anybody who doesn't have children, reserve it for people who do have children. They can make little moves to do that. They're the city, and put the schools right in the buildings. They don't have to walk anywhere. They just learn.
Mm-hmm.
And he did it.
Okay.
The mayor.
Wow.
And it was great. And so the kids went to school. They learned how to read, and they learned their numbers, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I was happy with that.
Okay. Now, you're a new resident at Leisure World.
Right.
When did you move in?
December 1,
Okay.
12.
And what's your thoughts about Leisure World?
Well, I don't have activities here that I have expertise in,
Okay.
except the swimming pool.
Okay.
And they won't let me teach in it. And so there's people that walk it. And I can't even say, if you blow your bubbles, you'd be better. I can't talk to them because I'm not allowed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they say if somebody drowns when you're doing that and we're hiring you, we're culpable.
That's reasonable.
So I said, okay.
But you can, maybe on future shows, you can give some ideas about proper methods in swimming.
Well, you have to have a bowl of water.
Yeah, it would help, wouldn't it?
Right. I don't think they want it here. They don't want lessons.
No.
And I wouldn't do it if they didn't want it. If they asked me, I'd do it, but I'm not going to go begging.
Maybe we have dry lessons. That'd probably be okay.
I don't think it'll work.
Okay. So you would, if somebody that is watching this show has some ideas of what they would like you to talk about. In
Oh,
future
yeah.
shows,
Other than, the only way you can do swimming, you get a bowl and you have the person put their head in it in front of the camera. I don't really know how to do that.
Okay. But you invite people to write in or call in.
Well, other ideas.
They can call into the Superwire office.
Oh, yes, let's give that number.
We're in the phone book.
Oh, you're in the phone
book,
Superwire.
so they can call us and say, hey, let's ask Marcia Baltimore to talk about this subject.
Oh, that's fine.
Fantastic.
And if it's all right with Leisure World. See, swimming was not.
Okay.
Driving, we can't do it either. It has to be the AAA. That will not be...
Can you have somebody from AAA to come in?
And I can quiz him, but he can't teach driving over the television.
You're right. It'd be sort of hard to do.
Yeah. But he can come in and talk about laws, if he wants, or she. That'd be all right.
So how many shows have you done on CRN?
About 32, 34.
Okay. And you...
I just read a batch to you.
Okay. So I guess we just want to know what the future is, and we'll see about getting you on this same type of venue, and we'll take some requests from the audience.
That will be good.
Yeah.
See what they want to talk about. I want to learn. And how they're going to teach it to them with a bowl of water, I don't know.
So what do you want to do when you grow up?
What do I want to do when I grow up? I want to publish the 2 books I have started.
Which are?
Well, one of them I'll tell you, the other one I won't. The one I'll tell you is called The Littlest Torah.
Okay, and what's that
And
about?
it's a story, it's true, of how the Prague government let Jews alone in Prague in the synagogue, where they hid all of the Torahs of Europe under the synagogue in Prague. So they must have had 200 or 300 Torahs. And in comes the American army, which is in my book.
Okay.
And they say, we're going to send these Torahs to America to save them because they're priceless objects,
Right.
historical objects. So anybody who knows anybody who needs a Torah in a new community, see the clerk, get the name and address, and we'll send it. Well, my husband was there in Prague. He was in the army, and he said, okay, my grandfather lives at, and so on. And they sent 2 of them there. And they went to this little town in Pennsylvania called Carbondale, next to Scranton. It's smaller than Scranton, so like 30,000 people. And they saved them. And then he saw his son leave, the grandfather, which was my husband, his grandson, to California. And my husband said, we need the Torahs, Grandpa. We have kids coming out of our ears down here. We need to learn them. And my grandfather-in-law said, I'm not the United States Army. If you want them, you come and get them. He wanted to see the grandson. And they took them.
Wow.
And they're now in Palos Verdes.
Okay.
That's the story.
Okay. And what? Any others?
No, I think I have them storied out.
Okay. All right. So, I want to thank you, Marcia, for coming in. I think you represent some typical people at Leisure World.
That's good.
Non-stop. They don't stop here. They just keep having ideas. It's like cerebral popcorn.
Oh,
It
really?
just keeps going, and people have causes, and they like to do things. They like to have causes. They like to have things that they can contribute to.
That's what I like.
And so I think you're going to fit right in, and I think you'll find that you'll have a lot of friends here.
That'll be interesting. That would be very interesting. I have to know how to find them.
Okay? So, Joe Osuna, do you have any questions for our guest?
Yes, how do we get to contact Dr. Baltimore if they want to ask her questions or discuss further subjects?
Can we give your email address out?
Oh, yeah. It's Marcia Baltimore.
How do you spell Marcia?
MarciaBaltimore, no space, at gmail.com.
That's a good address.
Yeah. What about the website? What website can they see?
www.marciabaltimore.com. That's just to look and see what I did. I wrote 2 books, and I look for the humor if I can get it. I mean, when the grandfather said, I'm not the Army, that was pretty funny. So my husband, who's the grandson, said, okay, Grandpa, we're coming.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
El gusto es mío.